Some days just feel like they contain the entire world. Days where total chaos and pure joy are happening at the exact same time. Well, March 9th, 2026 was one of those days. It was a day of incredible contrast, and we're going to unpack it all.
So on one side of the globe, this was the headline flashing across every screen. A story of crisis, of conflict, and a massive economic shock. Right away, you know the world's most vital commodity is teetering on a knife's edge.
And yet, on the very same day, for millions and millions of other people, this was the feeling. Just pure, absolute joy, a huge collective sigh of relief after years of waiting.
So that's the big question, right? How can our world, which is so hyper-connected, hold two completely opposite realities in a single 24-hour span? Let's dig in.
Okay, so we're going to start with the story that sent the global markets into a tailspin, a conflict in West Asia that was escalating at a really terrifying speed.
And look, we're not talking about a small contained event here. This was a full-blown, multi-front war involving major world powers, and it was threatening to drag even more countries into the fight.
So here's how quickly things went sideways. It all started with coordinated strikes in late February, which reportedly led to the death of Iran's supreme leader. By March 7th, it was just chaos, with Iran actually apologizing to its neighbors even as the fighting kept getting worse. And then on March 9th, the day we're talking about, a new supreme leader was put in place, kicking off a whole new, very uncertain chapter.
And this was Iran's big strategic move. They essentially choked off the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is an absolutely critical waterway. About a fifth of the entire world's oil supply has to pass through this narrow channel. And suddenly, it was practically shut down.
You see, a move like that, closing the Strait of Hormuz, doesn't just impact the region. Oh no, the economic shockwaves were felt almost immediately everywhere.
And there's the number. $119.45. That was the peak price for a single barrel of Brent crude oil that day, a number that set off alarm bells in finance ministries all across the planet.
And this chart, wow, it really shows you the scale of the panic. We're talking a surge of over 25% in just a few days. The markets were absolutely terrified of a massive supply disruption.
So there's actually a name for this. Experts call it a fear premium. The price wasn't just about what was happening with supply and demand right then and there, it was about the fear of what might happen next. It just goes to show you, in these markets, perception can be just as powerful as reality. And here's why that crazy price matters to you and me. A research report came out warning that this kind of shock could unleash a brand new wave of inflation, meaning everything from the gas in your car to the food on your table could get a whole lot more expensive.
And that fear, it just rippled through the whole global economy. As soon as trading opened in Asia on March 9th, the stock markets just plunged. Japan's Nikkei was down over 5%, South Korea's Kospi down a whopping 6%. It was a sea of red.
But here's the wild part. While all those markets were in a total freefall, the rest of the world didn't just stop. In other places, completely different dramas were capturing the attention of millions.
Over in Istanbul, a huge political trial got underway. The city's really popular mayor, Ekrem Imamoglu, a major political rival to the president, was in court facing a mountain of charges. His supporters were screaming that it was all a political hit job, while the prosecution laid out this case of massive corruption. An entire nation was basically holding its breath.
And then, thousands of miles away, the tense, quiet focus of a courtroom was completely drowned out by the roar of a stadium as a totally different story reached its incredible climax.
India became the T20 Cricket World Cup champions. It was an absolutely dominant performance, crushing New Zealand by 96 runs. For a country that lives and breathes cricket, this wasn't just a win. It was this huge moment of redemption and total euphoria, finally healing the wound from losing a final in that very same stadium before.
And believe it or not, on this exact same day, beyond the war and the celebration, a much quieter conversation was happening. But it was a conversation that might be more important than any of them, about how we're going to manage the next great global shift, artificial intelligence. On March 9th, the research firm Gartner dropped a report about this concept called AI FinOps. Okay, the easiest way to think about it is like a financial rulebook for AI. It's all about putting some basic guardrails on these big AI projects to make sure they're not just expensive science experiments, but that they're actually creating real value.
Now, this is what's so fascinating. Despite all the hype and all the money being poured into AI, Gartner's survey found most companies, 56% of them, hadn't even adopted these basic financial practices. It points to this massive gap between all the talk and what's actually getting done.
So the report basically laid out this simple roadmap. It's about setting clear goals, building strong foundations with your data, and, this is the big one, getting your people ready for the changes AI is going to bring. It's like a blueprint for a stable future, which feels a world away from the day's chaotic headlines.
So, what do we make of a day like this? A day with a war, economic panic, a huge political trial, a national celebration, and future planning all happening at the same time.
Well, one perspective came from former U.S. President Donald Trump. He basically framed those skyrocketing oil prices as a small necessary cost for global security. It's a statement that perfectly shows you the clashing priorities on the world stage. What one person sees as a devastating economic crisis, someone else sees as a price worth paying for peace.
And that really just leaves us with this one big question. When future historians look back on this single day, what story are they going to tell? Will it be the conflict that rattled the markets, the trial that could have changed a nation, the cricket match that brought joy to 1 billion people, or the quiet report that was trying to chart a course through our technological future? Which story will be the one that really mattered?